genuinely the worst Premier League season we've ever witnessed. Hey guys, welcome back to the channel, welcome to another video. Today's video is going to centre around that very question. Is this the worst Premier League season that we have ever witnessed? The Premier League title race in a lot of people's eyes is seemingly done and dusted. The relegation battle seemingly very similar. And a lot of people are seemingly suggesting and getting on board this bandwagon that this is the worst season that they've ever witnessed. Someone has thrown this out there, and this is a conversation which has seemingly gathered a lot of traction. And a lot of people are seemingly jumping on the bandwagon that they actually agree with that point of view. We're going to be talking about it in this video. We're going to be talking about whether or not that point holds validity or not. But before we go any further and discussing all of that and much more, I would like to remind you all to please like the video and also subscribe if you are new. Both things will always and forever be greatly appreciated. Get involved in the comment section below. Let me know your thoughts, comments, opinions, predictions, feelings, whatever you want to call it on that very controversial topic of discussion. I'm sure what you have to say will make for great and interesting reading, so please do get involved and talk to me on that. Would love to hear from you all. And without further ado, we'll get on to the topic of conversation ourselves. Is this the worst Premier League season we've ever witnessed? In my opinion, no. And in my opinion as well, this seemingly is a weird agenda being driven by mainly Arsenal fans. As a Liverpool fan, I've loved it. And it's not just because my team has sat top of the table. I've loved it even from a neutral point of view. There are so many stories that this Premier League season has told that it sets up not only this season, but it sets up for future seasons to come as well. Now, before I get into all of that, I want to obviously go to the point that obviously people have been making. They basically said the Premier League title race is over. The relegation battle is done and dusted. There's only really the Champions League running, the European football places that are there to be played for. Everything else just is so boring. It's so boring. The standard is poor. It's rubbish, basically, is what they're saying. And I don't get it. I don't get it. I like I say, I think this is mainly Arsenal fans that are driving this agenda. I think it's Arsenal fans that are angry at the fact that their team didn't do enough, so they're trying to deflect the blame on others, whether it be that their ownership didn't do enough, whether their manager didn't do enough, whether their players didn't do enough. I think it's also Arsenal fans that are deflecting, that have been doing all season with referee calls, VAR calls, and yes, they are an issue, and yes, they do need improving upon, but it's not the be-all and end-all as to why Arsenal have flopped this season, I guess you could say. Same ones that talk about injuries as well. Same ones that talk about, well, the amount of injuries that has been piling up for the problem. Liverpool have got fortunate again on both accounts, on VAR calls and on injuries. It's ridiculous that this is continuing and no one's really addressing it other than us. But I've got to say, I just hear a whole lot of nonsense, in all honesty. When I look at the Premier League table, I look at, okay, you can look at the relegation battle, and I think that is a problem. I will give them that. I think that the relegation battle is a problem. There's 5 points separating 17th place Wolves from 18th place Ipswich, and even 19th place Leicester. I do agree that there is a problem. I do think that the gulf between the Championship and the Premier League is a little wide, and I would strongly suspect that whichever 3 teams come up from the Championship next season are going to probably be likely to yo-yo back down to the Championship for the following campaign as well. I do think that is an issue that needs to be addressed. It needs to be looked at. It needs to be solved to give those kinds of teams a competitive chance of staying up. I do think there is a bit of a problem there. But when I look at the rest of the league, the Premier League title race, a lot of people are saying it's done and dusted. It's not over till the fat lady sings. It's not over till it's mathematically impossible. But Liverpool are currently, at the time of recording, 13 points clear of Arsenal. That is a big gap. That's a 5-game swing at the very least. And as we head into game week 28, with 10 games remaining, the margin of error for Arsenal is wafer thin to try and mount any type of potential comeback, potential fight back in a way to try and unbalance Liverpool and maybe help them bottle it. It's going to be big. It's not a remote possibility, but it's not exactly likely either. We're waiting to see if something miraculous is to come about of that. But with the way that Arsenal are playing right now and with the way that Liverpool are playing, it does seem rather unlikely. But after that, after the top two, from Nottingham Forest all the way down to 10th place Aston Villa, there is a points gap of 6. There is a 6-point gap between 3rd place Nottingham Forest, who are on 48 points, and 10th place Aston Villa, who are on 42 points. A 6-point gap that all contains teams like Forest, who are in 3rd, Manchester City, who are in 4th, Chelsea, who are in 5th, Newcastle in 6th, Bournemouth 7th, Brighton 8th, Fulham 9th, Aston Villa 10th. Incredible teams, all jockeying for position in next season's European competitions. Nottingham Forest currently occupy 3rd. Who are in their right mind would have predicted that Nottingham Forest may be playing Champions League football for next season? Who in their right mind predicted they'd be breaking into the top 4 for this season? I don't think anybody did. I don't think anybody in their right mind would have done. Manchester City dropping off in the way that they have done. For the first time in 4 years, we're getting a different champion to Pep Guardiola's side. And their drop-off this season has been incredible. And there's still no guarantee that they may even get Champions League football for next season yet. There's no guarantee of that. So that makes it even more interesting. Chelsea, bit of an unknown entity. Would their huge gambles pay off? Would the acquisition of Enzo Maresca as their head coach pay off? Would the amount of money that they've spent pay off? So far, they're in 5th. They're about achieving what many of us expected them to do. In my point of view, they're actually exceeding what I expected them to do. But again, there's still no guarantee that they'll get Champions League for next season. Newcastle, no European football this year for the Toon Army, but still going pretty strong this season. Alexander Isak is flying, and a big indicator as to where his and maybe a couple of other talisman that Newcastle have of their futures may rely on what happens this season in terms of getting Champions League football or not. Bournemouth, despite the problems that Bournemouth have faced this season with the amount of injuries that they've had, their story's been incredible. Fell off the past couple of games, admittedly, but I think a drop-off was always going to come because of the amount of injuries and probably the probably amount of work that they put into this season. It was always going to be a bit of a bump in the road at some point, probably. But their story's been incredible, and they've had a phenomenal season. And whatever happens, they can be extremely proud of what they have achieved during this campaign. Brighton, the youngest manager in the Premier League. What a story for them as well. What a brilliant story for them. If they can just turn some of their draws into wins, because they have drew the most in the Premier League this season, outside of in the top 10. Everton have won more than them, but they still have accumulated a lot of draws. If they can somehow turn a lot of their draws into some wins, who knows where they could be in future years to come. Fulham, going strong under Marco Silva. Probably gone a little bit under the radar this season, but still going strong. And Aston Villa under Unai Emery, fantastic couple of seasons under the Spanish manager, still going strong in the Champions League. Got a good chance, in my opinion, of making it into the final 8, as well as obviously balancing Premier League football. They've had a few big injuries this season to contend with. They are still mid-table. They are still going relatively strong in that. And obviously, like I say, with the points difference that is between themselves and the rest of the clubs that are above them, 1 or 2 wins here and there can drastically shoot you up the table. So there is still a lot to play for, and there is still a lot of interesting stories and things that are developing. And even when you look further down, the fall off of both Tottenham and Manchester United this season, to the point where they're currently lying in 13th and 14th, joint level on points with each other, that if maybe the relegation battle had been a little bit more hyped and a little bit more competitive, maybe they could have fell even deeper into a relegation battle. You've got Wolves, who have got a couple of players that I'm sure some of the big boys in the Premier League wouldn't mind taking off of their hands in the summer transfer window. Not that I somewhat advocate for that kind of stuff, like obviously more competitiveness, but they still have a couple of gems in their ranks. West Ham rolled the dice this season with Julian Lopetegui, didn't quite work out. They've since gone to Graham Potter. It's going to be interesting to see how he develops in future seasons to come. Everton, the return of David Moyes, the brilliant, incredible return of David Moyes so far during his tenure as manager of Everton. And obviously they're going to be going into a new stadium next season. Crystal Palace wasn't quite the kick-on from last season under Oliver Glasner, of course, but they have had their own problems. They've had their own injury concerns. They've had their own issues and things. And in recent games, actually, their form suggests that they are getting back to where they were at the end of last season. So again, maybe there is something still developing there for Palace and for their manager. And of course, Brentford under Thomas Frank had a bit of a slump last season, redeemed themselves this season, lost Ivan Toney, of course, but the likes of Brian Mbeumo and Johan Visser have again picked up the pieces that Toney left, and they're going strong again in a mid-table sort of battle. They're 4 points off Aston Villa. Again, another couple of wins and a couple of losses and a couple of hit and misses from now until the end of the season could really boost them up the table. It's still all to play for with a lot of these things. And if you're just basically looking at success being determined on whether you win the Premier League or not, you're not looking at the bigger picture, and you're not looking and you're basically being spoiled by being a member of the Big Six clubs, or the so-called traditional Big Six clubs that seem to have taken over the Premier League. You're then disrespecting and ignoring the stories of everybody else, and everybody has their stories. And like I say, it's not just about this season, but it's how it sets up for future seasons to come. I hate using this kind of phrase, but the process of all of these clubs are something that is going to be very much interested to look forward to. Whether you're David Moyes at Everton, whether you're Graham Potter at West Ham, whether you are Unai Emery at Aston Villa, whether you are the manager whose name escapes me at Brighton, the youngest manager in the Premier League. I've completely forgot his name. I do apologise. It's just disappeared off the top of my head. Or whether you are Andoni Iraola, currently at Bournemouth, but obviously with a lot of speculation surrounding you. Who knows where you could end up next season. And of course, Eddie Howe at Newcastle, Enzo Maresca at Chelsea. What happens with Arne Slot at Liverpool, even if the likes of Salah, Van Dijk and Trent don't sign on and they decide to go elsewhere? What about Nuno at Forest? What about Pep at City? There are so many stories from top to bottom that are developing. And not only are the narratives and the stories exciting, but the standard of football is improving. The standard of football. Growing up, we always said it was great. We always think nostalgia is great. But the standard of football is better now than what it was. It's more aesthetically pleasing. It's more technically gifted. There's a lot more hard work into it. There's a lot more thought and preparation into each and every single game, because each and every single game is just different, with different levels of opposition, with different ideas, different ways to attack, different ways to defend. Everything is different, and it makes it even more exciting. There's so much to go into this that is aesthetically pleasing as well as entertaining and looking good on the eye. I don't get where this narrative comes from. I just personally think this is mainly drummed up by salty Arsenal fans. And I don't want to generalise, because I'm sure there are probably other rival fans in there as well that may think the same thing. But I think this is mainly drummed up by salty Arsenal fans that are just annoyed with seeing them go toe-to-toe with Manchester City for the past couple of years, miss out, and then as soon as things don't quite go their way, with injuries, with maybe in their opinion certain VAR calls, red card decisions, whatever it may be, rather than turn their attention towards their own club, it seems that they are turning their attention towards the rest of the Premier League and going, well, yeah, we've been hard done by outside interferences, but the rest of the Premier League hasn't done their job. And that's why Liverpool have only gone on to win the league. I could obviously be reading too much into it, but I genuinely do believe that that is where this conversation has stemmed from in recent days. And I, for one, do not like it, because, like I say, I think you're disrespecting everybody else in the Premier League. You're disrespecting not just this season, but maybe future seasons to come. You're disrespecting processes and builds that certain clubs are going through. I just don't agree with the narrative that this has been the worst Premier League season that we've ever witnessed. I think, if anything, it's been one of the best. I think it's been one of the best. For me personally, of course, one of the best. To look at the bigger picture, in terms of being just a football fan and a fan of the Premier League, it has been one of the best. In terms of the football that's been played, in terms of the goals that have been scored, in terms of defensively as well, some of the defensive displays that have been very, very solid, disciplined and resolute, and not just even from the terms of stuff on the pitch, terms off the pitch as well, have been entertaining and exciting to watch. I don't agree with it, but of course these are just the thoughts, comments, opinions, predictions, feelings, whatever you want to call it, of this guy. I want to know what you guys think. What do you make of this potential narrative? Do you think this has been the worst Premier League season to date? Or do you think that is just a load of rubbish? Let me know what you guys are thinking and feeling down below in the comment section. Use and abuse that section, people. And talk to me on this very controversial topic of discussion. I'm sure what you have to say will make for great and interesting reading. So please do get involved. Would love to hear what you have to say. Otherwise, hit the like button on the way up if you enjoyed the video. Subscribe if you are new or want to see more content like this. Both things will always and forever be greatly appreciated. And as always, thank you all so much for watching and listening. I've been Fletch. This has been another Fletch Talks video. And I will see you speak to you all again soon in another video or live stream or whatever it may be. Cheers, guys. Thanks everyone for watching. Take care. Enjoy the rest of your day. Thanks, everyone, for your support. Very much appreciated. Will never be taken for granted. You guys are absolutely awesome. And I will see you speak to you all again soon. I guess. Take it easy.